You know, sometimes it can be December and you're approaching the end of the year and you think you have such a good perspective and such a good grasp on the year of shows and what's going to win all the awards and what's been the highlight production of the year. And then something will sneak in at the last minute and suddenly change everything. Tonight, that is exactly what happened. Oh my god, hey! Welcome to my Stagey YouTube channel. If you are meeting me for the first time, hello, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre. This is my YouTube channel where I review the shows that I have been invited to go and see here in the UK as a professional independent theatre critic. And today, that means, excuse me, where's my prop? Extra. Read all about it. I went to go and see NEWSIES at the Troubadour Theatre in Wembley Park. And Broadway watchers, believe it or not, this is the professional premiere of NEWSIES here in the UK. We have waited an awful long time, what, a decade? Since its Broadway run for NEWSIES to finally come over here to the UK. It's been done at ArtsEd, a drama school, but this is the first time it's being produced professionally. And I think I said West End there. Don't at me in the comments if you're going to fight with me about Troubadour not being West End. It's Olivier Awards eligible, that's all I have to say about that. Broadway is very good at defining its theatres. Here in London, West End is less of an exact location and more of a loose concept. But in any case, NEWSIES is finally here, and that is what I'm going to be telling you all about today. I am so excited to bring you this review. It was an incredible evening at the theatre. It was a hugely memorable press night, and there are so many things that I am ready to say to you about this production. But before I get into any of that, if you enjoyed today's video and you feel like you might enjoy more of the reviews that I do here on my Stagey YouTube channel, as well as reaction videos and videos breaking down theatrical news and maybe a little bit of drama, make sure that you have subscribed. I post new videos all the time, literally every day or every couple of days. Also, if you have any other Stagey friends and they might like to hear about this new production of NEWSIES in the West End, feel free to share this video with them. Or just share this video on socials and then maybe you'll make Stagey friends. Now, as we approach the end of the year and as I'm talking about favourite shows of the year, ShowScore, a website where members can sign up for free and post reviews of productions they've seen in London or in New York online and read each other's reviews and meet like-minded reviewers, they have launched a very exciting little game called the ShowScore Year in Reviews 2022. And it's basically Spotify Wrapped, but for theatre. So if you click on the link in the description down below and log into your ShowScore account, if you already have one, sign up for an account for free, which does not take very long at all, or simply play the game without already having an account and click on all of the shows that you've seen this year. It will give you all sorts of stats about how much time you've spent in a theatre, how many shows you've seen in London versus outside of London, what your kind of theatrical tastes say about you. Mine, interestingly, said that I was a curious cat. Who knew? I assumed I was a theatre cat, but you know, that's for old Deuteronomy to know and me to find out. And as well as giving you all of these stats, like Spotify Wrapped, you can share these cute little infographics to your social media. And if you do, and you tag ShowScore and Today Ticks, you'll be entered for a chance to win one of three £365 or $365 theatre tokens, courtesy of ShowScore and Today Ticks. So click on the link in the description down below and play the 2022 Year in Reviews for yourself. You can win theatre tokens and you can have fun doing it. Finally, if you really enjoyed today's video, feel free to use the super thanks button down below to give me a cash tip. That very much helps me as a Stagey content creator. Now let's dive right into my full review of NEWSIES. But first, would you like to see a sneak peek of the opening night curtain call? So for those of you who don't know, let me give you a brief little bit of history on NEWSIES. So NEWSIES is based on a lesser known live action Disney film, which was a musical, which was not wildly successful. Disney then produced it on Broadway via an original tryout in Paper Mill Playhouse, I believe, in the 2010s. where it subsequently ran and then toured around the US before being filmed for Disney+. But it is beloved of a great many musical theatre fans of the time. It followed the story of the newsboys who would sell papers on the streets of New York to earn a living for various reasons. And when the financially motivated newspaper owner Joseph Pulitzer decides to raise the price that they have to buy these papers for before selling them on, they decide to unionize and organise strike action. The musical specifically follows the charismatic leader of the Newsies, Jack Kelly, and his unexpected love interest, a young female reporter named Catherine Plummer. I won't tell you too much more about the plot of the show, but it's your usual striving for justice and equality in the face of capitalism and bad guys. Turn of the century bad guys. So it seems like a no-brainer that this would do really well. It had all of this hype behind it. It is arriving here in the UK with a pre-existing fan base from people who fell in love with it because of, you know, the original cast recording, because of all of these talented boys who were in the original cast, because of the Jeremy Jordan of it all, and Andrew Keenan-Bolger and Ben, and so many of the original Newsies that have gone on to have great careers. Mike Faced. I forgot about Mike Faced. And then you have the Disney Plus recording that brought it even more fans. You have a lot of nostalgia, even for the film version with Christian Bale, who went to my secondary school. That has nothing to do with this, but I like to mention it wherever I can. And yet, I wasn't convinced when this was announced that this was going to be an automatic slam dunk. And it has a lot to do with how the production was announced. So we knew we weren't getting the original production, the original staging, direction and choreography, and it was announced for the Troubadour. Now, I've been to the Troubadour a handful of times before. I went to see Sleepless the Musical, a musical based on Sleepless in Seattle. I went to go and see The Curious Incident of the Dog in the nighttime there. It's this huge barn of a venue that has no personality or warmth to it whatsoever, that I've never been particularly taken with as a theatrical space. And then the more we heard about this production, they started to use this buzzword, immersive. Now, since Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club, aka the Playhouse Theatre here in London, became the hit of the town, more and more shows have been trying to replicate its success by offering audiences a full 2-act musical that is also a semi-immersive experience. At Cabaret, the audience experience a pre-show as they move through different rooms in the Kit Kat Club, performed by the Prologue Company, and with all of this, they are transported to 30s/40s Berlin. There is a production planned of Guys and Dolls at the Bridge Theatre next year, which offers a similarly immersive theatrical experience, as well as revivals like Oklahoma, that is soon to be coming to the West End, the production that was recently on Broadway. Now, there is a much longer conversation to be had around the concept of everything trying to be immersive and how many of these shows really offer a genuinely immersive theatrical experience. But a lot of this seemed very at odds with what Newsies was about as a show. Newsies is a show that works because of its dance and because of its punchy, revolutionary, Les Mis-esque energy in a lot of ways. It has a great score by Alan Menken and Jack Feldman that will really fire up an audience. So I wasn't sure, but ever since it started previews last week, I have been hearing great things, and I am thrilled to tell you that this show is a hit. So this is a 5-star production. It's an easy 5-star production. Everything I said before about the Troubadour Theatre could not be less true with how they have completely redesigned it for this current staging of Newsies. It is no longer just these banks of seats facing this one stage. The stage is on a thrust. It's huge. It's such a tall barn of an auditorium. It feels more like an arena show, especially some of the things that they do on that stage and how they get to and from the stage. And you have a few rows of audience around all 3 sides of the stage, and then you have a lot of banks of seating going further up. But all around the outside of the auditorium, there are walkways, and the walls have been adorned to match the aesthetic of the stage. It's a production that spills around and envelops the entire audience. And it's so at home here, and it just feels completely thrilling. It's pulse-raising, and it's just spine-tinglingly chilling at times. The choreography is everything. It's balletic, it's athletic, the tricks that they do, it's insane. The little details of choreography that they use when people are just bringing on set pieces, when they need to just walk on to collect something to walk it off. They'll do a knee slide 3/4 of the way across the stage to then jump to their feet and take it off. Just the detail they put into these scene transitions and the care with which everything has been directed and choreographed is wonderful. I have so many more specific things to tell you, but first I think we need to address the question, how immersive is this production really? Now, I have a little bit of a skewed perspective on this, perhaps, because I am never looking for a completely participatory, immersive production. I like something that immerses me in its world while I can still remain seated and somewhat detached from the proceedings. I don't need to get involved. And if that's how you define immersive theatre, then this is not, because you sit and watch a show. You know, you walk through a sort of a themed area to go into the auditorium, and then the auditorium itself envelops the show around you. It's immersive in the sense that it doesn't take place specifically and solely on a stage in front of you, because oh boy is there stuff that happens in the audience. So you have this central aisle, you have these two walkways raised up around the side of the stage, you have these aisles going through the side seating, and then in the back half of the stalls, the raised section, there's a sort of an entrance that comes through from the ground level, and they are running all around. There are some really important moments that happen on that walkway in between the front and back half of the stalls, or you'll see characters watching from there as something's happening on stage. Bronte Barbé's character, Catherine Plummer, she watches the newsboys organising their strike action from that area for a decent amount of the show. There are a couple of moments where Jack Kelly, the protagonist, is fleeing from someone, and he runs through the audience and then runs across one side, and they are genuinely sprinting all around the audience. They run past you constantly and occasionally, and they're throwing newspapers up in the air, and it's raining newspapers, and there's so much going on, but the action is very much right up against you, almost wherever you are in the audience. Obviously, this is not a spoiler-free review, but I am going to talk about some more specific things that you may not want to spoil for yourself before you see this production. So if you're planning on seeing it and you don't want spoilers, skip ahead to the next section. One of the craziest things that happens right at the beginning of the show, and then it happens again in the second act, which is a newsie swings in from the back of the stalls, and this is, like I said, a really big auditorium. It's a long way back. He does an entire, like, rope swing. What's it called when it's on a cable? And they have them at playgrounds. What's the thing called? Zip wire. Zip line? They're the same. Zip lines in from the back like he's Batman. That was insane. And there's a lot of aerial work, and there's a lot more flying. Now, I did notice, and I've commented on this either on here or on Instagram, I can't remember which, before, that when the creative team was announced for this show, they were announcing someone who was in charge of the flying. And I thought, Newsies? Flying Newsies? And it turns out, yes. Not in the sense that they are winged creatures, but just in the sense that they are flying around on various ropes and they're spinning out over the audience like it's When I Grow Up in Matilda. I didn't make that reference, I have to attribute that one to Aaron. But honestly, they just go so much harder than they have to with all of these details and with how much they give you, with the level of experience and thrill that they give you. I think if it was just contained on a stage, you wouldn't get that same amount of excitement. There are slides onto the stage, and they are dashing around, and there are ladders all up the side. It's crazy. It's amazing how they've utilized this space. The flip side of that is I don't know if this production has any aspirations to transfer to a more central West End location. Wembley Park is not in the very middle of London. It's about half an hour out on the underground, but it may prove challenging for them to replicate this exciting an auditorium and this exciting a set in a central West End location in a more traditional theatrical space. So this is a very easy question for me to answer because the highlight moment of this show is very, very obvious just from the way the audience reacts. So towards the end of the first act, you have the song Seize the Day, and this is the moment that we finally see the strike beginning after it's been very talked about and sort of brewing for much of the first act. And the way that this story is theatricalized is this explodes into dance, into gorgeous choreography from director and choreographer Matt Cole. And the dance is so striking and so phenomenal and emotive and balletic and gymnastic, and there are so many tricks that people do, and there are so many amazing features and a crazy number of consecutive pirouettes and a crazy number of consecutive box jumps. It's insane. It is legitimately ridiculous and amazing, the things they do on that stage, and it got an instant, very strong standing ovation that lasted for a very long time. After this ends and the audience finally agrees to sit back down, they immediately do a little snippet of the number again, which gets a second mid-first act standing ovation, because it's still not the end of the act. That's followed by Michael as Jack Kelly singing Santa Fe. So those are both two mid-act one standing ovations. I don't remember the last time that happened in a show that I'd been to, let alone on press night. It's incredibly special, it's emotionally overwhelming, as well. I actually cried. I literally sobbed watching this choreography, which is not something that happens to me that often. I don't normally cry at dance numbers, and I was reasonably taken aback by this, but it was so good and it was so powerful, and the music just gets you. It is so stirring, and all of this dance is wonderful, and it's brilliant to see this much dance talent on a UK-based stage, because for a long time, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but the rumour was that they had workshopped Newsies over here. That we know is true, that they did workshop it over here, but that they were struggling with the idea of bringing it here because they thought it would be difficult to cast, because for some reason there is this thought that the UK does not have the same level of dance talent as Broadway, and tonight it was proved that that is certainly not the case. The UK evidently has male dance talent in abundance. King of New York, which opens the second act, is also really fun because the choreography is tap and it's just really whimsical, and they do these very clever things with holding onto lamps that spin around, and again, more just wonderful, unexpected brilliance. So some shows are really successful and get talked about a lot because they have one amazing leading or supporting performance, and it becomes a real vehicle for that individual. And from the original production of Newsies, Jeremy Jordan's career had begun to launch on Broadway. It wasn't the first thing that he had done, but it certainly caused a lot of people to take notice. And then on other occasions, you have these ensemble casts where no one is really any greater than the sum of everyone's parts. And I think the real stars of this show is the Newsie ensemble and all of these dancers. I think they get the biggest reaction, they get the biggest moments in the show, and they are wonderful. There are so many attention-grabbing individuals, so many of them get different little moments, the way that they do the bows, where they all have these different little striking dance features that they do in order to bow. I'm so glad they do it that way, and it's not homogenized, just walking forwards and bowing in a line, because the character and the personality that they have danced with throughout the show is so vivid, and it's what makes this material so brilliant. It's what justifies having dancing newsboys as a concept that never feels camp or silly or frothy musical theatre. It feels obvious and urgent and necessary because of the commitment with which they perform the choreography, and the sincerity with which it's directed as well. So I think the male Newsies ensemble was absolutely my favourite thing, and I would say theirs were the standout performances in this production. Or the standout performance was that there was no standout performance because everyone was great. Also, and I have another big spoiler about this production specifically coming. If you think you know Newsies and you've seen Newsies and you think there are no spoilers for you, this is a UK production, new thing that I'm about to spoil. Skip to the next section if you don't want to hear it. So there is a moment in the second act when everything is looking very low, when the Newsies from Brooklyn arrive. And it's this huge triumphant moment, and these particular Newsies have been talked about since the first act, and they are the ones who will dictate who else will join in with the strike action because everyone finds them very intimidating, especially their leader. And in this production, when the Brooklyn Newsies arrive, they are played by the female ensemble. There's only about 5 or 6 of them, but they arrive in that little mid-stalls raised area, and it's so cool. It's so great when they arrive as the big, intimidating Brooklyn Newsies, and it's an all-female Newsie lineup. Traditionally, all the Newsies are male in usual productions, and there's no reason whatsoever why this doesn't work, especially when you see them then all together as a mixed gender ensemble of Newsies. It's great and it's amazing, and it just becomes all about the punchiness of it and the energy of this choreography and the bravado, and nothing at all about gender whatsoever. Also, there are so many female fans of Newsies, so I think this is really great that they can see themselves represented as female Newsies. I think people are going to love this. I loved this. I do have a couple of thoughts about some of the principal performances, and one thing I will say generally to all of them is that this is a bigger space than perhaps they may have played before. I think a lot of things could be played a little bit bigger because you have some really passionate material. And when Michael Ahomka-Lindsay is singing Santa Fe, he sings it very capably, and he has the range, and he has all the notes, and he has a lovely voice. I would like for it to have more of an emotional arc, because it's not a very obvious lyrical trajectory with the song because of where he begins, where he's still in this traumatized moment and experiencing this guilt because of what he's led his friend into, and his friend who's just been taken away. And he was able to escape, but his friend Crutchy, who cannot walk as quickly because he uses a crutch, He's been taken away to the refuge, which is somewhere that Jack's been before. He's got all of these mixed up emotions about it, and then he recalls his aspiration to move away from all of this to this life of hardship and struggle and adversity and poverty and go and live in Santa Fe, which he has idealized in his head as this perfect haven. And he finds comfort in the lyrics about that, but then it keeps going back to him talking about the hardships of New York, and it keeps moving between the two. And so I think Michael can occasionally just come across a little bit one note in the way that he sings this song, and Jack's mood is constantly shifting in the lyrics of this song, and I would like a little bit more closer attention to the emotional spectrum with which that needs to be sung. I think acting through song is really important here, and I just wanted more of an outpouring of passion as well as high tenor brilliance. But again, possibly all of that is going on in his face, and a lot of us are half a kilometre back from the stage, and we need that to be bigger. For Bronte Barbé as Catherine, I really love the energy that she comes in with, where she is reasonably uptight and she is indifferent to Jack's flirtatious affections towards her. At some point in the second act, predictably, they fall in love, and I don't know that I necessarily believe it as much as I want to. I just want to be more convinced of her softening resolve towards him. I love her during her song, Watch What Happens. She delivers this wonderfully in a way that I absolutely thought she would, because she's so great with this kind of material. This is a really fast-paced song where she has to articulate so many different feelings, and she keeps swapping between confidence and then utterly low self-esteem, and the way she does it is fantastic. She hits the song out of the park. She's equally great in King of New York. The way that she interacts with all the other newsies is brilliant. I just want to see more romance blooming out of her when the time comes for it. Ryan Kopel as Davy, I really enjoyed. I thought he was very strong, and I liked the way that his character, he had such a strong arc because he comes in fairly separate to the newsboy culture. He's not really looking to make friends, and he's quite reluctant to completely emotionally involve himself with everything else that's going on, and he becomes more invested really in the strike action than Jack does in the second act, and to see the way that he has changed throughout the story, that's really satisfying. But while I'm mentioning names, I do have to circle back to telling you all of the dancers in this ensemble are just fantastic. There's some individuals that get some ballet solos. I can't pick out who all of them were, but Ross Dorrington definitely gives you some amazing choreographic moments. McKenny Nell also is a complete scene stealer. Your focus goes immediately to him whenever he is on stage, and he does these occasional little ballet trio moments. They were all fantastic. So many great newsies. Loved the newsies. I want to talk briefly again about some of the creative team, because I've already gushed about Matt Cole's work as a director and choreographer, but that he can do both so fantastically is a testament to an enormous skill set, as well as the dance, as well as how great all of the dance and the choreography is, while still maintaining the feel of Christopher Catelli's original choreography, because you have to. Like West Side Story has a feel even if you're not utilising the beloved original choreography. Here we still have that Newsies feel that's reminiscent of the Broadway version, reminiscent of the film, but has its new style as well. And we don't do all of the striking things from Seize the Day. We don't do the pirouetting on top of the newspapers that Ryan Steele did, but we are still doing some familiar things, and we are still doing some iconic moments that are going to become famous for being in this production. And there's so many random things that they do and ways that they move around when they're rolling over their heads on the floor, and I'm like, how is that even a thing a human can do? Honestly, it's incredible. The set is absolutely incredible. That's been designed by Morgan Large. And Mark Henderson's lighting design. There are so many fantastic lighting moments. Atmospheric and wonderful. When we do the first switch from outdoors New York into Mr. Pulitzer's office, the snap between those two lighting states, I audibly gasped, and it's not that shocking. It's just the kind of thing that I would geek out at. But the difference between the two was wonderful, and the way that that switched location for us instantly as an audience, the way they end Santa Fe with this big yellow moon slowly getting brighter behind Jack, representing this optimism, this glow behind him, that was wonderful. There are great moments. There are great lighting moments throughout. The way that they light Jack when he's taken down to a basement area, the way that they are able to light them around the audience. I mean, there are so many technical factors that this show has to consider that not every production has to consider. Let me just tell you a little bit about the audience experience, because I'm sure many of you are wanting to go and see this production and may not have visited this venue before. So like I said, this is in Wembley. The tube station is Wembley Park. It is not a very long walk from the tube station. The foyer can get very, very busy because it's only this one foyer area outside of the main auditorium. So I would suggest getting there early if you want to get a drink from the bar. There is a lovely little merch collection. They have t-shirts and hoodies and pencils and mugs and pins. It's a Disney show. What else do you expect? Interestingly, I was sat in the Manhattan section on row T, which is quite far back, and I still felt like I had a fantastic seat. There was so much to drink in. I wouldn't have wanted to be too close because you'd be missing all of the amazing things happening around the audience. So if you've only been able to get seats that are further back in the auditorium, do not be concerned. There's so much to see. It's one of those huge productions like The Lion King or like an arena concert where you're still going to be able to enjoy it from sitting a little bit further back and being able to see everything that's going on around you in your peripheral. If you would like a more specific insight as to what the theatre going experience is like, stay tuned for my upcoming Oh My God Hey, which should be coming out this weekend, because it features the press night trip to NEWSIES, and I filmed all of the things. So you'll get to see what it looks like inside the venue, all of the merch I talked about before, as well as more of the curtain call footage from earlier in the video. Now, if you have been lucky enough to see NEWSIES already in London, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Did you see an early preview? What was the show like when you saw it? And what was your favourite thing about going to see it at the Troubadour Theatre in Wembley Park? Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my Stagey YouTube channel for plenty more videos just like this coming very soon, including some more reviews and a roundup of my favourite shows of the year coming at the end of December. Don't forget to click on the link in the description down below to play the Show Score 2022 Year in Review and possibly win a £365 or $365 theatre token courtesy of Show Score and Today Ticks. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey. Thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!